companies like Theodore Roosevelt and Woodrow Wilson and FDR. The reason I see the U.S. is this was a bellwether commercial hub at the time. The same Americans that drove centralization, that set up the Fed, also set up the SEC. And they did the gold seizures. They started all these alpha agencies that resulted in this. Okay? This is in the 1930s. Everybody knew that this centralization was bad and was happening, but they couldn't fight it because the technological trend was with it. And you know, a lot of Bitcoin maximalists, they're like, oh, I hate the Fed, but I love the SEC. Okay? And actually, it turns out they were started and set up by the same guys. Like the SEC was set up in the 1930s. The whole point was to limit self-allocation of capital. The whole point was soft capitalist control of the economy, basically Keynesianism, which is better than communism, but it comes from the same place of limiting economic control. They don't want you to buy all the stocks. They don't want you to have all the self-allocation. They don't want you to hold on gold. The Fed and the SEC, they come from the same centralization of the piece. As Rex told me, he was one of the brain trust smart guys who were going into government in the 1930s. Now we've got the brain drain, all the smart guys are going out of government, really staying from the US. And the thing is that when we think of Keynesianism is communism. You know, Keynesianism, they take 90% of your money over time. Communism, they take all of your money at once and all you off your food. Okay? It's the difference between acute and chronic, right? Die slowly or die real fast. Okay, yeah, that's better, but it's also actually taking all your money. Now, the thing about this is that whole thing, all that centralization is all one piece, and that cannot come with these gigantic borders. That centralization, this is pretty much in World War II. The reason it was so bloody and brutal is because states can't take an infinite amount of money from their people. There's no way for these people to opt out. There's taxation, there's centralization, didn't have different information, they didn't have anything like that. They're just all giant, basically slaves throwing each other in this giant war. And that's also kind of like World War I is. And the thing about this is, this civilization is going to reversing all of that. It's reversing the centralized center. So we had the private banking era in the 1800s, now we have the era of cryptocurrencies. And back then, we had a populist left movement against gold because they didn't want to cross the gold. They didn't want the government should be able to spend to take care of the poor and so on and so forth. Now we have a populist libertarian or populist right movement for digital gold because we don't want the government to spend, we don't want the government to take the money. And you can argue that it's left or right, but it's different populist in both cases. Back then, as I mentioned, the smart guys went to the government, the brain trust. Today, we have the federal brain drain. Back then, the feds were winning in court. There were also gigantic court battles in the early 20th century over whether the state controlled all of this stuff. And they fought, and they lost some, but they won more than they lost. Okay? And some of these cases were sensational cases that were covered at the time. The gold case was bigger than 9/11. It was huge front page news because totally forgotten now, so the government could seize the gold. Now today, history's running in reverse. And the federal government is losing these cases. They're fighting and they're winning some, but they're losing more than they're winning. Remember, they're picking these battles. They are choosing who to litigate with, and they're still losing. They have the ultimate home court advantage. It's like getting dumped on in your home, court, right? So they're losing. And so if you put all that together, right, and this macro arc, if I say history's running in reverse, when you see like 50 examples, you're like, okay, there does seem to be something going on here. You can fit more of that. So do another 50 slides on this, okay? What happens after now? The banking crisis isn't over. And it actually turns out that FDR took office during a banking crisis in order to build centers after that, right? So basically, major banks have these massive unrealized losses. This is in the US, but this is anybody who's bought US bonds. We're talking hundreds and hundreds of billions of dollars. Bank of America alone has $100 billion paper loss, okay? These are like insane numbers. Just to put it into context, think about a tech unicorn, that's $1 billion. Think about how much work it is to build a $1 billion company. They just take 100 unicorns and throw them into a wood chipper, and that's like one of these. That one bank, it's a big bank, but it's just one bank. And we're not just talking about normal banks. The Bundesbank is Germany's Fed. These insane headlines, okay, this is all written in financial news, but it says Bundesbank may need recapitalization to cover bond buying losses. What that means, translated, is Germany's central bank, which can print money, may need more money to cover the losses it incurred on buying the risk-free assets. Just think about how many insane concepts are embedded in that. A, is bonds are supposed to be safe. B, the bank that's supposed to print the money needs money from somebody else. C, it's gotten such massive losses on these risk-free assets that it needs this bailout in the first place. What is even happening, right? This is like, Milton Friedman used to joke that if you put the communists in charge of the Sahara, they run out of sand. If you put the Keynesians in charge of money printing, and their central bank runs out of money. Okay? And so these are like absolute crazy headlines that haven't been processed by people because they're really this sort of coded language where it's not like explain to you why this is so insane. Okay? How can a central bank need recapitalization? Can it print? It can. Okay? So this banking crisis is not American, it's global. India, China, and crypto, I think, are best positioned against it for reasons I can talk about. But basically, if history is running in reverse, as I mentioned, the emergence of Banking Act of the 1930s and FDR signed into action, Fitch warns it may be forced to downgrade dozens of banks, including JP Morgan Chase, supposedly the biggest American safe kind of thing in the world. Okay? We just saw that before the pandemic, the USA was rated as the number one country to respond to pandemics. And it sure was, right? Where was it? Maybe it was in last, but definitely wasn't first. We just saw, like, in Hawaii, for example, there was this massive fire in Maui where FEMA, the feds, just weren't even present. They sent $700 as a check to people who had their houses burned down by a fire. These are things where the federal government that in the movies you think of as very strong is just completely absent. And the thing that you're betting on to be there isn't. And I kind of think that, it's not just an inflation that's transitory, it's the US banking system. So what does that mean? It basically means, if that was the Great Depression, we're arguably in the middle, at the outset of the Great Inflation. History running in reverse again. This is this amazing thing where we've actually going to calculate out like home prices and stuff like that. This guy is saying this tracks more with like what I feel on the ground. I don't feel it's like 2% or something like that. Like you can just take your own receipts from like Grab or Uber or something like that. You're like, is this a 4-course meal or is this like Subway sandwich, right? And it's just gotten so ridiculously expensive. And then they're gaslighting you by saying, oh, inflation is only down to 2%. They're doing some weird redenomination of it. Of course, inflation is a compound thing, right? So, if it's 2%, that means prices are still increasing just at a slower rate. So it's all meant to kind of confuse you, quoting a derivative when you care about gas and right? You care about price level. Gas prices coming down is actually prices going down. Inflation coming down is not prices going down, they're just going up more slowly. So the point is, I think we're at the outset of the great inflation. I think this thing is just getting its legs. If you look at Canada, you look at the UK, people are really getting crushed. They're saying things on TikTok, which I've also asked, I'm like, how are normal people even living with this, right? And China actually has deflation now, right? They've got their own issues potentially, but they've got kind of their own economic collapse islands kind of consideration. So back then, gold went vertical against fiat. Today, digital gold has actually already gone vertical against fiat. It's gone from 10 cents to $1 to $10 to 100 to 1,000 to 10,000. The smart money has been exiting the US dollar and the US banking system for a decade plus. Okay, the fact that this has gained 5-6 orders of magnitude against the reserve currency, people aren't looking at the right graphs when they're thinking about the strength of the reserve currency. What's the alternative? It's here. It's already here. It's at scale. We've talked about it every day. It'll be completely obvious when it happens, but the smart money is already figured it out. So the issue is that back then, when the government was centralizing control, they tried and they executed a successful gold seizure. Something that's not being talked about or thought about enough is they are making it easier to seize crypto without criminal charges. These are real headlines. This is coming to a country near you, okay, unfortunately. And this is why we need networks. Okay, this is why we need to protect free speech, free markets, property rights, civil, all these kinds of things. We can't just trust the existing governments to do it because many of them are threatened by this. Okay? So there's going to be resistance to any such seizure. That resistance is going to be in part partisan. For example, in the U.S., there's red states that say, the right to hold Bitcoin shall not be infringed. Okay, Bitcoin represents a threat to the current regime, pushing to attract Bitcoin miners to Oklahoma. There are folks who are fighting this course, but they're like a outnumbered group of people. It's like the non-communists within the Soviet Russia, right? They need help from abroad. That's actually, what we can pull together. And the thing about this is the existing political divisions, everything I showed before, that digital separation, the digital secession is already here. And so, when you talk about this is happening, let me just explain these graphs a little bit. To understand what may happen, this is showing how separated the political atmosphere already is. These are political leaders. Each node is a political leader, a congressman, and whether they vote with each other or not. This, however, is a totally different data set, and this is individuals on Twitter and whether they follow each other or not 6 years ago. Today, they're in different apps. They're in their own separate universes, okay? So you've got the blue apps like Mastodon and Blue Sky, and the red apps like Gap and Parler and Truth. And this is mirroring across the Western world. Again, India and China have this to a lesser extent. China, much lesser extent, it's got some problems. India is still relatively unified. I think it's on its mostly centralized market. The point is the digital separation is already here, and the physical separation is growing. These red cities are getting redder, blue cities are getting bluer, okay? People are fleeing blue cities for red states. And you put all that together, and what I see coming is something not like a civil war, but like India's partition, okay? India's partition, which there's a lot of Indians here, and I just have to explain this for an American audience, didn't make any sense if you were just looking at it from space. Like, why would you draw the borders there? Okay? And it only made sense if you thought about where Hindus and Muslims have lived for many years before them, and they used to live in mostly peace before them. But when the federal government vanished, when the British vanished, and they just said, figure it out, and they said, okay, here's the borders 2 days after independence, and everybody's like, oh my God, I'm in the wrong country, and people ran across the lines, and it was just total chaos. That feels a lot like BLM in 2020, on Jan 6th, the chaos of just tribes, right? And I kind of think American partition, if the red states have Bitcoin and the blue states run out of money, and you've got the dollar states and the Bitcoin states, that's the kind of thing that can lead to the breakup. And I can't help but see partition and see the US and I see the Republicans are like the Hindus and the blue states are like East and West Pakistan, like the wings. And it doesn't make any sense geographically if you wouldn't do that on a map. But it does feel kind of similar, like that history running in reverse type of thing, where the breakup is not along religious lines but economic lines, not along culture but along economics. And this is a scenario, let me put it like that. I've shown like 50 different things of history running in reverse. And the crucial thing is this is not a civil war. It's not guys with guns in uniforms organized shooting each other. It's just like a lot of crazy, because partition wasn't a civil war. It was just tribe on tribe, right? Group on group, disorganized, decentralized, chaotic, messy. That's what I think the US is right now. It's not reds versus blues in formation. So if you put that all together, FDR's gold seizure was the key to centralization. And this book, for example, talks about how the gold seizure was like the moon landing or 9/11 attacks in terms of how much coverage it got at that time. Okay, it's a great book to read, just to give you a sense of how much is being forgotten. Like, it's an absolute insane amounts of, if you've heard the term potted history, it's like you hear about this event and this event, but not the intervening events. They're just kind of blotted out, but not like that. Okay. So if FDR's gold seizure was the key to building the centralized century, it is quite possible that a failed cold seizure is the key to decentralizing. And you don't know that was going to be an animation, and I'll show it to you. But basically, if the whole political compass rotated from to basically Bitcoin versus the dollar as opposed to like rulers. So we don't know what comes next. But history's running reversed. Then our futures are mirroring our past, and we've really only begun to realize what the world is, and the economics are rolling away from digital gold and away from. So, thanks. Thank you very much. I can take questions for a few minutes and we'll get approved. All right, I'll take 3 questions and then I'll take photos and stuff like that up on the mirror. Okay. So actually you got in front, so why don't I take some of the back? Okay. Yeah, go ahead.
So first thing is that I'm really a big fan of what you do, networking. From the conversation of you starting that there are only few countries, there are only 200 countries, what, and then you're talking about like improving more in terms of people how they can start countries on their own. It's a good start point. And network state is what is to understand is that you rightly spoken about is not about fully digital, but there is a way to get into physical in terms of network and once you go there. It's interesting. Why this topic is interesting is because from my background of being in politics back in India, I was working there, so called IPAC. So for 3 years I worked with various parties and seeing the ground reality. My question here would be that mostly even the blockchain or the crypto, the focus is given on in terms of money or value creation is focused on fiat or in terms of money. But my question would be is that most of the successful campaigns or most of the successful revolutions have happened on ideology.
Yeah.
So where, yeah. So in terms of the graph.
So the question is, historically, folks in that historical revolutions have this ideology, but there's one where they intersect. The communist revolution is an ideology based on money, right? In part. And I think Bitcoin maximalists are sort of like the reverse of communists. I'm not a maximist. I'm a pluralist, I'm an optimist. I never say that, right? But basically, I mean, the 2 big things that revolutions have around, yes, it's ideology, but it's either A, economics and mechanisms of communism, or I think maximalism, and B, culture, right? Like, the tradition that we talked about, but also sort of microphone. You're going to need both, basically. TLDR is revolutions on the basis of economics have happened, and I think they may happen.
All right, in the back, please, so everyone can hear. Sorry, the speaker is not quite that loud. So everyone in the back can remain quiet and hear the questions.
I can hear you. I can hear you, but I'm not sure if the mic.
Oh, okay. Balaji, I wanted to ask you, like, what did you say to
Microphone.
What are you wrong?
Can you? He'll repeat it.
What are your thoughts around? Okay. What are your thoughts around a scenario where there's sort of opposition to the network states?
Yeah.
Like, opposable.
Great question. And so I've got all new material on this actually. So I just released. It's funny. I did like a first draft of this like verbally with Eric Tornberg and Dan Romero. So 7 hours of podcast on Lost Podcast. And the thing is, sometimes you actually see if you're describing an existing concept like an operating system. Okay, when you say operating system, you go figure out what details about it. But it's a new concept. You need a lot of words, or often describe a minimum number of words. So the short version is, if it's conflict with the existing society, first you decide whether you need to pick that conflict. If that country is functioning well, it's Singapore or it's Dubai, there's no need for a conflict, right? In San Francisco, yes, conflict is needed, right? And so the thing I talk about in that podcast is rather than trying to, who here has been to San Francisco? Okay, you guys know what I mean, all right? All right, so how would you actually retake San Francisco? There's a bare land version of like building something out of building nothing. And then there is buying buildings in neutral territory. And then there's like reclaiming buildings in hostile territory. So how do you do that? A, organize what I'm calling the Gray Tribe after Scott Alexander's kind of thing. get a census of all the great tribes, basically pro-tech people in San Francisco. Get a census, how many men do we have? 50,000, 75, 100,000 out of 800,000? Get a census also of which buildings we want and control or lease or whatever in the city. And then make a map of how much territory Gray controls. And then every day, increase the percentage of territory of San Francisco that Gray controls. How do you define controlled territory? It is A, so just a lot of Grays there, okay? B, the Grays own buildings, and can they set the key card criteria so you can lock folks out and set up an order, right? So you can keep out addicts and crazy people and so on. And then V3, the last step, and this is the part where I devote a lot of time in the podcast to, can you get streets that you put bollards up and you make them walkable communities, maybe only self-driving cars allowed, but you block all addicts and crazy people and criminals from coming in, right? Can you start retaking territory and fencing it off? This is literally like refreshing the map of Russia and Ukraine, okay? But for the Korean War, but for San Francisco, gray versus blue, the cloud versus the land, tech versus gold, okay? And the entire battle plan and so on, I talked about that in this thing for hours, and there's a lot of details there. But the fundamental concept is the police of San Francisco, the government that controls San Francisco says, F the police. And we say, fund the police, F-U-N-D. We hold meetups where they attend. We find their cousins' jobs at all these tech companies. We donate to the Policemen's Benevolent Association. We have gray t-shirts with tribal insignias. We have tech companies adopt a police person. So we've got 1,865 policemen in San Francisco. Easily 1,000 tech companies. Each one adopts one police person, policeman, whatever, brings them to lunch. You're good, right? You start to actually build a social network with the police. Now, the non-enforcement of destruction, of breaking windows, starts to go in your favor where there's non-enforcement on construction. Okay? And this will be a battle. It's a huge battle. What I'm describing is nothing more than basically flipping the police over to the side of gray. Because if they're not going to enforce the law, you only enforce the law at the discretion of the government, well, that's actually something which can be flipped and be turned in the other way. If this works, and we'll know it works if we can get even like a block or 4 blocks fenced off. Because you'll try a few times, you'll try to put up bollards, they'll be taken down. You'll try again, you'll try to make 100 things, they'll be taken down. You try again, they stay up for a month. You guys remember the Chaz in Fortnite? Right? This is the reverse Chaz. Okay? That's what we're going to do. We're going to actually carve out reverse Chazes that tech controls in selected adversaries. And if we can do this, if Gray Tribe can basically drive Blue Tribe out of control in San Francisco, much as Blue Tribe drove Red Tribe out of control in San Francisco in the last several decades, okay? They turned California and San Francisco into one part of the state. If we can do that, we can turn around San Francisco, we can turn around Los Angeles, we can turn around Seattle, we can turn around Vancouver, we can turn around all those other places, and we can prevent the wolf Lyme virus from spreading elsewhere, because it does have its tentacles in other places in the world. It hasn't gotten as bad yet. You can see tentacles of it in every English-speaking location. Okay? So this is like what McCarthy would call rollback, right? And the thing about that is, that has a mission. So you asked about ideology. That has an ideology embedded in it. That's conflict, baby. Right? So, go ahead. Let me give it. Why don't you ask all this and I'll give one more question?
Yeah, my question was more on can we rethink the capitalistic, like I'm not proposing like a communist kind of agenda, but if you read David Graeber, 5,000 years of debt and dawn of everything, he talks about direct democracy and, thinking thoughts which are better than capitalism. Like he has a famous quote saying, we can think about going to Mars, but we cannot think about like improving capitalism or like a better form.
So here's the thing about that is, if you define it as communism versus capitalism, then people will say, I think correctly, communism killed a lot of people in the 20th century and so on. If instead you say group versus individual, I agree there's many possible societies with many legitimate trade-offs being made between them. And if you kind of change the language a little bit around that, I think people would agree with you that different societies have different trade-offs between group and individual. But the individual will always have to work, and the individual will also always have to give submit someone to their community, right? There's going to be some degree of individual and some degree of group involved. And then my answer to Greg or anybody like him is start a community, recruit people, get land, and get them a playbook. Show me it's possible. Just like Elon, show it's possible. We can be NASA, we can do it. So Graber's thing, I would say, you can imagine, go build it. Build it, I'll fund it. It works. Right.
Hey, please go down to that. There's lots of space out in the street to talk to.
Yeah, so I'll come outside and you guys can talk out there. So you can roll some form.
Hello, here. So, hello.
Yes.
Yeah, so I'm a citizen of a cyber nation called Sudan, and we have got some sort of recognition with cyber treating with Anduba. So now as a citizen, how do we build an economic for cyber nation on the network state?
So, so this is like this Korean guy who's got like he managed to get a thing from Antigua on his like the shows on there. So I think what I'd say is you basically how like Saudi Arabia their national export is oil, right? Saudi Arabia their national export is oil, and some other countries their export would be oil. The way to get people to take you seriously is to have something that you export which is so valuable that people have to actually recognize you. Okay? One way of doing that is to have 10,000 people join you, and then you have collective bargaining power to do something. And we'll see. Yeah. Okay, are we going to take the questions outside? Or do you want to do
I was saying you go talking in the back and go outside.
Oh.
Yeah, thank you, Balaji. What do you think we as a community should do to make network states reality as soon as possible? Or in other words, by the time the current system collapses,
I know.
what should we build like to be as prepared as possible?
Great question. So I have been slowed down by some things, but that's actually what I'm going to be going. So first of all, everybody here, I forgot the last slide. Yeah. Everybody here, come to the University Conference in Amsterdam. Okay. We're going to have a bunch of great speakers, but it's not going to be, I like the conferences, that's great. It's not a crypto conference because we have lots of people building cities. And we have the Meetup and all the people who are interested in this. We're going to take great videos and we're going to post them online. And people will be able to see that this is actually a movement. So you should come because we'll give you an in-person NFT for coming and so on. So that's part of how we do create a movement. Then, as Tom mentioned, we're holding, or we're doing it in like kind of a pilot beta kind of way. We're soon going to start ramping up after this conference. We have bi-weekly network state meetups all around the world. And what I'm looking for are community leaders in Bangalore, in Budapest, in Brazil, in Boston, who are capable of getting 10 and then 100 and 1,000 people subscribing to their community group. So it's like the new SaaS, Society as a Service. Okay? So if you are a community founder, here's the thing. If you have 1,000 people and you can work with them to crowdfund and build one, and they're paying even $1,000 a month in rent, which is cheap by the way, that's a 10 million ARR business, right? 1,000 people, $1,000 a million bucks times 10, 12, right? 12 million ARR. That's actually a pretty serious business right there. So being a community leader is, you can set it up like a company, but it's different than a traditional startup company. You're not going raw, where you're trying to get billions of people and have each of them pay you $10. You're going deep, where you have 1,000 people or 10,000 people, and you're trying to deliver values and they all co-live together, and they're managing their community. This is how you become a digital mayor or digital governor. Okay? You're basically essentially almost elected to run this community. You first crowdfund the branches and then crowdfund buildings. Okay? So this is basically what we're going to be doing at the University of Meetups, and basically trying to find these community leaders around the world.
Thanks for the talk. Can I ask you just two quick questions? The first one is
One question, only one question.
Okay,
I'm going to stay here for a while, so I'll just take one question.
Okay, our nation states basically kind of proto network states already. Do they occupy that in between, that company that you've drawn out, or that was drawn out earlier in the idea to go into traditional nation states and network states?
Yeah. So what is in between? Between traditional?
basically city states.
Oh, city states.
Yeah.
Yeah. So actually, I think of it as, that's a good question. I think of it as a version 3.0 in the following sense. You had gold, V1, then you had fiat, V2, then you have digital gold, which is V3. And fiat beat gold because it is better than gold in some ways. You can transmit it, you can program with it, you can do a lot of stuff with fiat currency that you can't do with physical gold. There's like, aside from all the fake stuff, there's real stuff in terms of efficiency, obviously, right? Not paying with gold and credit cards, it's digitally produced. Bitcoin, and more generally cryptocurrency, is a version 3.0 that combines the values of gold with the programmability and transferability of fiat. And of course, we have the fiat coins and so on. So to your point, I think of it as city-state, nation-state, and network-state. The city-state was defeated by the nation-state. The city-state is V1, the nation-state is V2. If you go and look at a small city-state like in Italy, gosh,
San Marino.
yeah, San Marino. Yeah, you remember, I was in front of the book. That's right. Yeah. So San Marino in Italy is like it's like a duck-billed platypus. Okay, it's like this missing link, this relic from the past, where you can see what the era of city-states was like before they all got rolled up into nation-states. India also had an era of princely states. Within, an older person who was born in the 40s, they lived through an era where India was ruled by a bunch of princes who reported to the British, effectively, that was simplifying things. And then all those little princely states got rolled up in one giant India, okay? And so India and China are still in their centralization arc, so the most unified they've ever been. I think that's going to keep going. But the West is in its decentralization arc, in my view. And the V3 of the member state can beat the nation state if it needs to fight it by not fighting it. By basically, you've got a decentralized currency like Japan, you have a decentralized country. The fundamental vulnerability of a city state is that it's a small thing that can be beaten by this giant imposing and invading nation state. But a member state is physically distributed around the world, and so the power projection you would need from a physical army to go and invade all these little hamlets, and you didn't have to find them, would be too much. So our defense is way better than a city state.
Yeah, just one. I'm checking if you want to do QA all the way through.
I want to kind of get some food, if that's all right.
Yeah, you choose.
How do you differentiate a network state from anarcho-capitalism? Oh yeah.
How do you differentiate the network state from anarcho-capitalism?
Well, it's definitely not anarcho-capitalism. The reason is, I believe in crypto civilization, not crypto anarchy. Okay? Crypto anarchy is better than anarchy. Anarchy is bad. The guys who've done shit. Anarchy is BLM in the US. Okay? That's not good stuff. That's people setting things on fire. Anarchy is the time of partition. Anarchy is when there's no law except for your own wits. It's like you can't drink the water, lots of things are bad. Crypto anarchy is better than anarchy because there's at least digital law. Right? There's property rights, all the digital stuff you can trade back and forth. But in the physical world, it's like Syria, It's something like the law and order breaking down is actually not good. Crypto civilization says we exit from the current system and then we build a better system. Right? It's like unbundling and then bundling. It's like you unbundle all the songs from a record into MP3s, you rebundle them into playlists. Okay? You unbundle all the articles into individual URLs, and you rebundle them into Twitter feeds. People don't want to have 1,000 individual pieces scattered forever, but they also don't want to be stuck in old centralized things. So the least popular and most important word in the world is re-centralization. Because consensual re-centralization is the other two words. You get away from non-consensual centralization. Decentralization is like break the glass, hit the fire alarm, get outside. But then you need to regroup to rebuild civilization. You can't be all, like basically, I think a sovereign collective is more realistic than a sovereign individual. Because, as even Steve Jobs said, he's as sovereign individual as it gets, superhuman kind of guy. He said, look, I don't put pipes in my house, I don't cut my own wood for my chairs, I couldn't possibly do all the things that you do, just sit down at the table and have a cup of coffee. That's all these other people that I depend upon. And maybe you can get farther, certainly the robots and AI and leverage, I do believe you can. But I still think that a small crew can do a lot more than individuals. So we need more than the sovereign collective and the sovereign individual, more in crypto civilization and crypto energy. Good?
Thanks, Balaji. We have this QR code here on the screen. So this is a proof of attendance. And why is this important? In the era of AI, the digital world becomes more artificial, but cryptography makes it more authentic. So this is proof that you are here today. We know you're human. This is going to be on the blockchain. You're going to be able to prove that not only were you here in person, but that also that you're interested in network states. It's going to be a valuable reputation in the future. Please let Balaji eat food before you demand any questions, but I know he's happy to answer all of your questions after he's fed. Thanks everyone. Cheers.